Hello, and welcome to the Knit and Grace podcast. This is episode 9. Hi there, and welcome back if you are a returning viewer. If you are new here, my name is Mia, and I am the maker behind Knit and Grace. And today I bring you our monthly podcast episode. So these episodes tend to be in the traditional knitting podcast format, where I go over everything that I have been knitting in the past month. So this will be everything that I knit in May of 2023. And yeah, I am going to be changing things up a little tiny bit this month, in that this month's podcast episode will be in 2 parts. So today we will be going all of my FOs, whips, and making plans for the month. And then next week, I'm actually going to bring you all of the acquisitions for the month. So it'll be a 2-parter, and I hope that you stick around for both of the episodes. But with all that said, I guess we can jump right in to what I'm wearing today. So as you would have seen in the little clip that I have just put in, I am wearing my Miles shirt by Ozetta today. And this is a pattern that I tested for her, was it last summer? I think it was last summer. And so this is for Haley Smedley of Ozetta. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved this test knit. I love this top. I wear it quite a bit. I love the little detail in the back with the extra little, you know, sort of touch to the drop shoulder sweater design. And I'll link you to the video where I talked all about the making process for this top, as well as the podcast where I went over all of the specifications for the top that I'm wearing today. So before we get into FOs, I'm going to share what I'm drinking today because I do need to take a sip. Today I'm actually drinking an iced tea. And so I have been trying to cut down on my sugary beverages, you know, like sodas and things like that. We're not huge soda drinkers, but when I'm in the office and we have access to the free cafeteria, I tend to go a little crazy. So in the mornings, what I've been doing is when I brew my coffee, I've also been brewing some wild berry hibiscus tea. And so I think this is the Mighty Leaf brand that I have been using. And so then I just leave it out on the counter to cool for the day. And then when I'm ready to drink it, I add in a little bit of seltzer and a splash of lime juice. And it makes this really refreshing iced tea that I've been drinking. So I hope you're able to grab your beverage, whether it's warm or iced. It is quite warm here in northern New Jersey where I live. We had some storms yesterday, so it's actually quite humid today. So I couldn't really bring myself to drink anything hot after my coffee. And that is why I'm drinking some iced tea today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the FOs for the month. And the two FOs I actually do not have, or the first two FOs I should say, I actually do not have with me. But I will insert pictures here for you all to see. And of course, like always, I will link to my Ravelry project pages down below. But the first FO that I have to share with you all is the Windchiff by Stephen West. And this is my third time knitting this pattern. It's an absolutely great pattern. It's just a simple beanie with a really nice ribbing detail. And so I knit this one in the 4th size, which is the largest size on US 6 or 4mm needles. And so the pattern does call for you to switch to US 7s after the initial rib portion, but I stuck with the 6 for the whole portion of the hat, or for the whole hat I should say, because I was knitting the hat with DK weight yarn instead of the worsted weight yarn that the pattern calls for. So the yarn that I used is Fiber Co. and Make DK, which I have been featuring quite a bit recently here on the podcast. And the color is called Look at the Stars. And so this hat was one that I made for my brother-in-law, or I should say my brother-in-law commissioned for me to make for him for his clients that recently closed on house for him. He's a realtor. And so, yeah, this hat was a delight to knit. The only modification that I have made to the second and now this third version of the hat since making the first is I have added an inch before starting the crown decreases. I found that if you follow the length before starting your crown decreases, as called for in the pattern, it tends to be a little short. So I did add an inch before starting the crown decreases. Other than that, no other modifications have been made to the pattern. And I was able to get a hat out of just one skein of yarn, which was really great. So the next finished object that I have, which is another hat, and if you did watch last month's episode, I explained how my brother-in-law commissioned these two hats after I made him and my sister a pair of Oslo hats. So this second hat is the Oslo hat, and I think that this is my 5th time knitting the pattern, and I think it's like the third like consecutive month that I've knit this pattern in a row, so it's not going away anytime soon. And so again, it's the Oslo hat by Petite Knit, and I once again made the 4th size, which is the largest size, and I knit this one on US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needles. Again, I use that same and make decay from the fiber company in the color Look at the Stars. And I did modify this one slightly by simply knitting the brim before the fold over to 1 centimeter less. So essentially, depending on the size, and I won't, give out any specific details, but you knit for a certain length before you fold over the brim, and you knit, your live stitches to the cast on edge, which is what that creates that double folded brim of the Oslo hat. And so what I did for this one, because when I knit my brother-in-law's hat, I used just over 2 skeins of this yarn. It was very little over, just a couple grams over. So I wanted to stick to just using 2 skeins of the yarn. So what I did was I knit 1 centimeter less before doing the fold over, and then I knit the rest of the hat as specified. So ultimately, I think what that does is it just, it reduces the brim depth by 1/2 centimeter, but the actual hat depth, everything else was exactly as called for in the pattern. And so now I have the 2 FOs that I had here live in person. However, they were both finished this week, which also means that they're not blocked. Which, if you've been following me for a while, it's kind of like the name of the game around here is I never block anything. Or at least I never block anything before showing it on the podcast, I should say. So the first one, I do have all my ends woven in and it's ready to be blocked. But the first one that I have to show you all is the Anchors Summer Shirt. So another Petite Knit pattern. And so this is how it looks. And so this is a really nice summer top pattern. It is designed for DK weight yarn, and it has a combination of a circular yoke and raglan yoke. So to create this sort of circular, this part here, this is a circular yoke, and then you have raglan increases before splitting for the sleeves and the body. Now this one, I have to go back and actually measure this guy and really do some stitch counting, because this is kind of like, I very, very loosely use the pattern, but not very loosely. Like I kind of was trying it on as I went along. So for this pattern, if I recall correctly, I cast on for the 5th size, and I used a size 6 or 4 millimeter needle for my main needle. And then, because I wanted my top to be somewhere between the 5th and the 6th size, and my gauge was off. So my gauge was tighter than the pattern calls for. So I cast it on for the 5th size, knowing that the 5th and the 6th size start off exactly the same. And so I followed the instructions for the yoke, and then what I did was I started the increases, and I don't remember if I placed my markers based on the 5th or the 6th size. That part I don't remember exactly, but I actually only increased for as long as I needed the yoke depth, because even though my stitch gauge was off, was smaller, my row gauge was actually larger. So I actually ended the body before the number of increases that the pattern called for, and then I split for sleeves, After I split for sleeves, I knit for 10 inches before doing the bottom ribbing. And then the sleeves I shortened by 1/2 inch. So she has you knit the sleeves with the decreases to a certain length and then do your ribbing. What I did was immediately after I finished my decreases, I did my ribbing, which shortened the length of the sleeves by 1/2 inch. Another thing that I did, which you'll notice if I hold it up like this, you can see that the back is slightly elevated as to the front. And if you've seen sort of the schematics for this, you may know that this pattern actually does not include short row shaping. But I actually did add in 6 rows of short row shaping immediately after splitting for the sleeves and body. So what I did there was I split for the sleeves and body. You know, you have your underarm cast-on stitches that you have. And so what I did was I worked back and forth until I had knit across all of the cast-on stitches. So 3 times essentially, however many cast-on stitches I had, I divided that by 3. So I just kept, you know, I knit to the first spot, to the second spot, and then to the third spot, which when you're knitting back and forth is 6 rounds of German short rows. And then that gave me just a little tiny bit of a lift, which when I tried this on, is quite perfect. And yeah, and I tried this on, it fits absolutely lovely. So I just need to block it. And the reason why I didn't block it was because I just finished this, I want to say on Thursday. So I didn't want it to still be wet when I filmed the podcast. So now that I'm filming the podcast, I can go ahead and block it and take FO pictures and start wearing it because I'm really excited to wear this one. So again, it is the Anchor Summer Shirt by Petite Knit. It's sort of a custom size, just I tried on as I went because of the raglan nature of the increases. For this one, I am using Lion Brand Kobu in the color Mauve. And again, I'll link to my project page below so you can see all of those details. Once I figure it out, I actually have to like sit down and actually like count the stitches to figure out exactly what I did, because I was just winging it. I was not taking notes. I was a bad knitter in terms of if I want to recreate it, I really do need to sit down and take notes so that I can recreate the fit for myself. And so the last FO that I have to share with you all today is a shawl, which is unfortunate that I haven't blocked it yet because it's gonna look a little crazy, but here it is. And so this is the Plume shawl, or just Plume, by Melody Hoffman of Bee Mandarins. And I knit this in Knitandgrace. Onarakia Knitandgrace is single-stranded in the color Duve Kula, which is a natural white. One thing that you'll notice is I think when I purchased this, I bought a 300-gram bag. And then I think I also bought a Pistling Posa bag, which is their Lucky Charms, that same time. And it had a few tufts of Dukula in there that didn't look like they were color changes. And so one of them was not a color change. It was just a mill end. But one of them was a slight color change, which I didn't notice until after I'd already knit into it. So you see there's this little tiny section right here. And that's a little darker than the rest because I wanted to use up those small bits first before breaking into the bigger bits, and I just chose not to go back and fix it because with Knitandgrace I would have had to actually cut back to rip back that much. So it was knitting it this way. So I would have had to go from here down to here, which would have meant cutting it and to rip back that much, and I just didn't really care to. So it's just gonna be what it is. And so again, I knit with it held single. So this is what that single strand looks like. And this is a pretty stable blend. So this one was very easy to knit single, and I think I used about 155 grams of the Cnitand. So now that I've showed you all, I can actually block it out. It's gonna block out much larger than this, and I knit this one up really quickly in about a week because we recently changed offices at work. And my new office is quite cold, so I wanted to knit myself a new shawl to leave at my desk so that when I get cold, I have something to wrap myself up in. So now we are going to get into the whips portion of the podcast, or works in progress. And so yeah, you'll notice that I got a little cast on happy this month. But I also tried to finish some things. So like I finished the Anchor summer shirt, which I think you may have seen last time. And you know, but I have been casting on a bit. If you all saw my post, in my community post, recently had a death in the family, so I think that that's lended itself to just want to start new projects, and I've just been wanting to start new projects, and I haven't really been finishing anything, so hopefully this month I can start finishing some things. So let's see. The first thing that I'm going to show you all, I am having in my town bag here. And so this is a new cast on that you all wouldn't have seen. However, I did talk about it in my last podcast episode. And so this was to be, or is, a test knit for Heather Nolan of Oleanic Knits. And unfortunately, I was not able to finish this one. Like I mentioned, I had a death in the family. It was a very, I mean, I'm not going to get into it, you know, my family's privacy and all that, but it was like a really crazy 2 to 3 weeks that we had there with a situation that happened. And so I'd gotten pretty much all of this to this point where I'm showing you, and then I just really couldn't pick it up anymore between everything that was going on. And then I think just like the yarn that I'm using and the colors were just very dark, and I wanted something lighter to knit on, so that's kind of why I put this down. But let's see, here we go. This is the Vintage Lopi, again by Heather Nolan of Oleanic Knits, and it is a, as you can see, circular yoke Lopi Peza inspired top. And yes, what to say, I'm knitting this one in the 5th size, or the 48 inch, and my main needle size is US 7. Which is 4.5 millimeter needles. I think it's one bigger than they got in their gauge. I think that Heather's gauge is a US 6 or 4 millimeter needle, and I got gauge on a US 7. Yeah, so I am knitting this one to pattern, and I do hope to finish it soon. I am knitting it with Kelborn Woolen Lucky Tweed. So I have a cake here, so you can see what that looks like. And this is yarn that I picked up at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival when I stopped by to visit my friends of Kelborn Woolens. And so I am using the color black. So here, see. So black, cream, and medium gray is my main color. So far I haven't made any major modifications other than I did add in a bust dart. So I did add in a 4-inch bust dart due to the fact that this is a more fitted top, so I want to make sure that I have enough length in the front so that when I wear it with slacks, which is probably the way that I'll wear it the most, especially in the winter for work, that I have proper coverage. So the next book that I have to show you all, I believe I showed in my last podcast, although I'm not 100% certain. And I'm just holding it in this duster bag that I got from one of my Hokey & Co. orders. And it is the Straya cardigan by Andrea Mowry. And this is how it's looking. So as you can see, I finished the body. And I've been fairly good about, I was fairly good about weaving in as I went. I just have a few little ends that I need to weave in here. And then, to be completely honest, I would have thought that would have been finished with this because I was pretty obsessively knitting on it for a while there, because it's kind of like that potato chip kind of feeling where you want to get to the next stripe. But when I went to pick up for the sleeves, and I was like reading the instructions, like for some reason, like my brain, there's nothing wrong with the instructions. I think it also had to do with this weird time, you know, with the things going on in my family this month. And then I think I picked up the sleeves on the train, which I really should not have done on the train. I really usually try to set myself up for the week and then like have my train knitting ready to go. But I was picking up and trying to figure out the pickup rate and the decreases and all of that while I was on the train, and I just didn't have the headspace for it. So essentially I literally just picked up and maybe worked one round. But the body is done, which I'm really excited for. So this is definitely one that I'm going to be working on this month so I can finish it up and have a little cardigan, especially as we head upstate next month, and I can take some really pretty pictures of this one. So what to say about this one? Again, it's the Straya by Andrea Mowry. I'm working the 5th size, and I am using US 2 or 2.75 millimeter needles, which are the needles that are called for in the pattern. I do have my swatch back here. Although my swatch is slightly different from my actual the actual colors that I'm using. So for my main color, I'm using a woolly knit British wool cone in cream, so the 100% wool. So that's the cream color. And then for my stripes, I'm using all different types different leftovers of linen quill that I have in my stash. So here you have Stillwater blue, kiln red, turmeric yellow, and then I forget the name of this pink here, but I actually have 2 different pinks, and the one that I ended up going with for a little bit more contrast, you can see here, is the lychee pink. So you can see the difference between those 2 pinks there. So yeah, so I'm really excited because I had this cone in my stash for a while, and then I'm also using up some extra stash yarn that I had from another project that I had quite a bit left over of. So I'm hoping to pick this one up probably in the next couple of days so that I can start finishing it off. And then I have one more project to show you. So the last project that I have to share with you all is in this patchy project bag that I made quite a while back with some leftover linens and linen blend fabrics from my stash. And this is the Parnell by Barocco Design Studio. And so more stripes. Let's see. So there you can see this is knit in pieces. So first you knit the back piece, then you knit the front piece. You seam the shoulders, and the pattern does tell you to do the sleeves and then, you know, do your seams and then do the neckband, but I'm going to make this short sleeve, so I always like to make the neckband first so that I can see exactly how everything is fitting. So this is a pattern that is knit in pieces. It is a free pattern. So I'm knitting the 6th size, and it is not quite size inclusive. So I think the largest size that it goes up to is a 57-inch bust for the largest finish size, and I think the intended ease is about 3 to 5 inches. So this pattern, though, I think when it comes to free patterns, it kind of like crosses, it's an intersection between inclusivity and accessibility. So while it is not a fully size inclusive pattern, because it's a free pattern, it's definitely one that you can take the sort of guidance of, and really the only reason I'm knitting this pattern, or not the only reason, but the main reason that I'm knitting this pattern is because I like the look of how these stripes are distributed. So really you can take a free pattern like this and apply it to a size inclusive paid for pattern that you have in your library already and be able to modify it that way. I also like free patterns, especially for new knitters, if you would like to sort of get a feel for sizing, how patterns are constructed, etc. And then also, you know, if you wanted to actually do the math and increase, do the math to increase the sizing for yourself, you're able to do that as well very easily, especially because it is a free pattern. So again, I'm knitting the 6th size, which I think is the 52-inch bust. And then, so it's going to be a little bit more oversized on me, or yeah, a little bit more oversized. It's about 6 inches of positive ease for me, which is what I like for like an oversized fitting garment personally. And I am knitting this on US 5 or 3.75 millimeter needles, which is the needle that the pattern calls for. And I am using woolly knit cotton for this one. So I did purchase some cones from the knit along that's going on with Woolly Knit and Rebecca of the Creabea podcast. And so I'm using cream as my main color and navy blue as my stripe. So I am really excited about this. So far I haven't made any modifications to the body. I've knit everything to length. I did do 1x1 rib for the neckband as opposed to a garter rib or a garter edge neckband, which I think is called for in the pattern, and I'll also do that on the sleeve as well. But what I'm doing for this one is I'm actually going to do short sleeves as opposed to long sleeves that are called for in the pattern. So I'm really excited. I'm hoping that I can finish this weekend while I sit down and edit this podcast and the next episode of the podcast. Oh, and yeah, I'm using the woolly knit cones, but I'm actually holding the yarn double. So let me show you what I did. This is what I have left over of my blue after the body. But essentially, I had the cone on my food scale, and then I would ball up 50 grams and then sort of put it down, the cake, and then ball up another 50 grams from the cone so that you had both together there. And so this is what's left of my 100-gram cake of the blue. So it's really not using a lot of the blue. I think that should probably take me through to the stripes on the mane. And then the cream, this is actually the last that I have of it. So because I didn't want to waste any of the yarn, what I did here is I actually just balled up whatever was left on the cone single. And then what I'll do is when it's time to knit, I'll just pull from the outside and the inside until I'm done, so that I don't have any, you know, sort of leftover odds and ends of like double balled yarn, especially because cotton isn't something that you can easily, like, you can't spit splice it. Like, you'd actually have to, like, you know, either tie it off or do like a magic knot and weave it in and all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to avoid having any random like small bits of the yarn. So that way whatever is left over I'll have for something else. Maybe I'll do another stripey type of project for that. So that's all that I have to share with you today with regard to my FOs and my whips. Again, acquisitions will be in next week's video if you want to check that out. So it'll be a vlog of Maryland sheep and wool, as well as the acquisitions that I got there, as well as some other acquisitions that I picked up in the month of May. I'm also going to give you all a recap on some of my stash down goals, which, surprise, surprise, I haven't really been stashing down. I've been adding to my stash, and a little bit of a challenge that I'm going to pose for myself for the rest of the summer. So definitely tune into that. I'm going to sort of just challenge myself to make sure that I can meet my goals for this year when it comes to my knitting. But yeah, for June, I think my knitting plans are really going to be finishing up some of these whips that I have. I do have some other lingering whips that I have. So I have like a shawl that you haven't seen in a while because I haven't really picked it up, as well as a few like second mitts or second socks. So I'm going to try to do that this month because I have whips all over the place that need to be finished up. And yeah, other than that, I'm deep into summer knitting, as you can see with some of the cotton yarn purchases and cotton projects that I'm working up. So I'm really excited to knit this summer. I think this is probably, knock on wood so far, the most knitting mojo that I've had in the summer. And I think a lot of it has to do with the woolly knit cotton that I picked up, which is absolutely lovely and a dream to knit with. So I would definitely recommend that you pick some up if you're able to. I think that as I'm posting this video, if you're watching it when I'm posting this on Sunday, which is the 4th, I think the sale with Woolly Knit and Creabea is still going on until the 9th. So definitely go ahead and check that out if you're interested in some cotton for the summer. It's really, really nice. And yeah, for my June schedule of videos, you all are actually going to get a video every week this month, which is out of the ordinary around here. As you all know, I try to usually post twice a month. But next week, as I mentioned, you'll get that acquisitions video. The week after, I'm going to have another follow-up video to my 2 size inclusivity videos of April, I want to say. And so that one I'm going to be rounding up some shape inclusive designers, as well as providing you a few more resources as a follow-up to the things that I spoke about in those last 2 videos. And then the last Sunday of the month, I have a little sort of day in the life knitting nature vlog that I'm going to put together for you all. We took a really quick day trip up to my sister's house on Memorial Day, so I got a lot of knitting in and spent a little bit of time in nature. So I put together a really short amount. It'll probably be like a 10 or 15-minute vlog, a little bit of content for you all while I was up there. So I hope that this video found you well. I hope that you are enjoying the start of summer if you are here in the northern hemisphere. I know technically we're still in spring, but like here in northern New Jersey, we're in summer. It's in the high 70s, 80s for a while now, for the past couple of weeks, before we get into, you know, the death grip of summer where you can't do anything because it's way too hot. And then if you're in the southern hemisphere, I hope that you have all the things cozy as your weather is starting to cool down. But yeah, as always, let me know what you're working on. If you've been working on something while you've been watching this episode, let me know. Are you excited for summer knits if you are in the northern hemisphere? If you are, just let me know what you're working on, because I could definitely use some ideas. I have a few things that I'm thinking of making this summer, so I'm really excited about that. And yeah. Until next time, I'll leave you here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.